Welcome to Effective Pastoring. This is the place where we talk about how we can serve our churches better as pastors, being effective in reaching their life and helping them to grow to the image and likeness of Christ. We are today going to talk about something that is important, that is even unique to the church. You know, you can do all kinds of ministries, but particularly the pastors have to do more with people than other part of the ministry. So let's discuss today how to handle people. Handling people is vitally important as a pastor. If you don't know what to do with people, you're going to have a lot of problem with them. And it takes skill, it takes godliness. Above all, it takes a careful followership of Jesus to help us do this. Jesus, when he was here, he was a man of God, but he also drew huge crowd of people. And today, Christ is still pulling crowd all over the world. The witnesses are the churches in all nations and cities and states and wherever. Jesus is still drawing men to himself. He said, if I draw from the earth, I will draw all men to me. So, as is under shepherd, as pastors, we must know how to do this quite well. If we don't do this quite well, we are going to defeat the purpose of Jesus coming. That means to rescue souls and to give life to them. And as pastors, our job is to preserve and keep these souls, because not only do we want to save them, also to keep them to the last day when he will come. So let's talk about handling peoples in our church. How do we handle people? What do we do with them? I want to just pick a part today and let's go to Apostle Paul. Apostle Paul was discussing a particular church. And that's the church in Thessalonica, in his first epistle to them, chapter 5. We want to read two verses there, 5, verse 14 and verse 15 for Thessalonians. And we're going to see, talking about how to handle people there. Let's get into it. Let's read it. It says, now we exhort you, brethren, warn those who are unruly, comfort the faint-hearted, uphold the weak, be patient with all. Did you see that? Let's read the next verse. See that no one renders evil for evil to anyone, but always pursue what is good, both for yourselves and for all. Now, that's what we're reading from New King James Version. Let's read from Amplified Bible, and that will give us some more light about it. Listen to this. The same chapter, 5, 14, 15, for Thessalonians. He said, we earnestly urge you, believers, and admonish those who are out of line, the undisciplined, the unruly, disorderly. Encourage the timid who lack spiritual courage. Help the spiritually weak. Be very patient with everyone, always controlling your temper. See that no one repays another with evil for evil, but always seek that which is good for one another and for all people. That's mouthful. Praise God. We're going to look at them. He was talking about what to do with people. And Apostle Paul, first of all, drew one thing that we can do with everybody, all those who come among us. We're going to read it right now, and I love the way he put it. Listen to this. It's the end of that verse 14. Take a look. He said, and be patient with all. Underline with yellow. Be patient with all. If you are going to get along with everyone, everybody requires patience from you. Patience means that you suffer long as a pastor. You calm down. You just don't get impatient with people. That's just what it means. You have to just take a long haul with people. The Bible uses particular one phrase that's called long suffering. That means being able to cope with people without breaking down and without giving up on them for a long time. Of course, there'll be a time when you have to just say, I can't go further. But that must take time and long suffering. You never say everlasting suffering, say long suffering. So be patient with all men, being able to put up with their struggles, their weaknesses, whatever it is. So the first thing with all people is to be what? Patient with them. Let's read what he said in verse 15 before we start talking about the special part of the people. Let's look at verse 15 one more time. Let's read it again. He said, see that no one renders evil for evil to anyone, but always pursue what is good both for yourselves and for all. Let's go to Amplified Bible. It says, see that no one repays another with evil for evil, but always seek that which is good for one another and for all people. So you can see that Paul was saying this as a pastor, as a minister of the gospel, who is the shepherd over the church. He says, don't repay evil for evil. And people will do you a lot of evil. I must confess to you, they did Jesus evil. And they're going to do you evil too. I mean, Judas sold Jesus. Peter denied him. Thomas was always doubting. James and John asked him to call them fire because they were very impatient with people. And of course, the Pharisees were like thorn in the flesh for Jesus. But he coped with all of them. And I was telling somebody sometimes ago that Jesus had a lot of struggle with the Pharisees. And he spoke against them. But guess what? He took one of the finest persons for the gospel from Pharisee. Apostle Paul was a Pharisee. Jesus didn't give up. Hallelujah. So that's don't repay evil for evil, but always seek that which is good. Say it again. Always seek that which is good for one and other and for all people. Always seek that which is good. Don't repay evil for evil. It's very easy. I'm a pastor. I'm tempted regularly to just serve people according to their desire and just let them have it. But I let that take some long time before I do that. And when I do, I take them back again and see what I can do with them. Of course, some, you just can't handle them. You don't have that kind of level. So you go somewhere else. But don't return evil for evil. So seek that which is good. No matter what people can do to you, seek their good. Of course, sometimes people are punished for their good. People are disciplined for their good. Let's not forget that. But it's for their good we are after. We are not just after to just revenge or just be vengeful. But we are doing this because we want them to be benefited at the end of the day. You seek the benefit of all people. Now, let's talk about some of these special people. You know, Paul talked about being patient, but he also mentioned certain type of people in verse 14, and he told us what to do with them. He mentioned 3 kinds of people. We're going to look at it now. This is what he said. He said, now we encourage you, exhort you, brethren, warn those who are unruly, comfort the faint-hearted, uphold the weak. Apostle Paul mentioned 3 types of people. Beside all people, these are also part of the people. Those who are unruly, those who are faint-hearted, and those who are weak. See those 3. Let me show it again to you. It says, one of those who are unruly, faint-hearted, and the weak. So these are people in our midst that Paul actually classified. And put them in the 3. He said, they are unruly, they are faint-hearted, and they are weak. What do you do with each of them? Let's start with the first one. He said, there are some people in our midst who are unruly. And you find them in every church, in every congregation, in every place. He said, warn those who are unruly. Warn those who are unruly. What do they do? What's their problem? We're going to find out in a minute. So this is what he says over here. We're going to go to Amplified Bible, and we're going to see what to do with them. The Amplified gave us more meaning to that. Let's read it. It says, okay, listen to this. It says this. Let me read it to you. It said, admonish those who are out of line, the undisciplined, the unruly, the disorderly. Okay, so you can see that. He called them the undisciplined, that's the unruly, the disorderly. They're undisciplined. They don't want to keep in line with whatever you do, whether they are workers, whether they are members, whatever they do. And they are disorderly. They do things out of order. Then Apostle Paul said, we should warn them. We should do what? We should warn them. Or another one says, we should admonish them. That means that we should confront them. Don't just let the unruly get away with it. They will like to push the boundary. They will like to push you to the edge. You need to voice out that they should not go that way. Warn them that are unruly. Remember, one time Jesus was talking to disciples and he asked, "Who do you say that I am?" And Peter said, "You are Christ, Son of the living God." And Jesus said, "Blessed are you." The next moment, Jesus said, "I'm going to the cross." And Peter took him aside, started rebuking him and said, "Master, that won't happen to you." That's going out of order. That's going out of unruly and discipline with revelation. He's just now applying his own flesh. Jesus said, "Get behind me, Satan, for you are not speaking of things of God, but the things of men." You can see that. You can see even the Pharisees were unruly with Jesus. And he will go after them and say, "Don't be like them." He said, "Woe upon you." So that's that place where the unruly, the undisciplined, the disorderly, they have to be admonished. They have to be sat down and be confronted with what their issue is. That is important in handling people. So you are dealing with the unruly and mark them. They do things they want to do things out of order. They don't want to follow, lay down rules. They don't want to obey. They just want to do their own thing. So you have to just call them to order that if you are going to be here, we're going to put you. You cannot do that. And we must learn how to do that as pastors. Do it the spirit of love, patiently admonish and warn them. Let's look at the next person. He said that's the next one is the one that is faint-hearted. The Bible said, "What do you do with the faint-hearted?" He said, "Comfort the faint-hearted." That one means people that are having little soul. That's the original Greek language. What is soul? Soul is the liveliness, the strength to get things through. Let's look at what Amplified said. We're going to look at what Amplified said about them, what they said about them, and then we can go to learn one or two things from that. Let's look at it. Okay, good. Let's look at what it says. Look at it. It said, "Encourage the timid who lack spiritual courage." Encourage the timid who lack spiritual courage. They don't want to take the step. They don't want to start it. They don't want to initiate it. They don't want to continue. They are always on the side of the negative. They are not unruly. They are not bad, but they are just don't have enough wherewithal to take steps, to go ahead. They are the type that they will not go to somebody that they should marry. They want to do that. They will not challenge things in their lives. They will just always just hang around being fainted. They're not just strong enough. Bible says we should give them a push. Encourage them. He said, comfort. The word comfort means to strengthen from within. Encourage them. Tell them they can do it. Move them ahead. Oh, that's important for us to do. We need to encourage those who are faint-hearted, those who are giving up. And I believe every pastor must have a ministry in this direction, that you know how to encourage people. You know how to push them on. You know how to go them on. You must know how to do that. Like Barnabas, the Bible called him the son of encouragement. You know, when Paul was not accepted in this church of Jerusalem, he was there. He stood for him before the apostles and they brought him in. What a mighty encourager. Even when Paul now became a man of God and Mark was working with Paul and Barnabas and there was a problem. John Mark left them. He didn't continue with them in the ministry. Later, Paul said he shouldn't continue them at all. And they had a fight. And Barnabas took Mark, agreed to go with Mark. That was an encourager. He just won't give up. So encourage the faint-hearted. Encourage the timid. Encourage those who lack boldness and spiritual courage. So you have to do that. And as a pastor, you must. People are always in our churches that are just afraid, are just scared. They're saved, but they just kind of be timid. They're just kind of fearful. They look and see the negative side of life. So you must bring it to the sunlight of the Son of God and show them that they can actually live. And they need to have, surely goodness and mercy shall follow you all the days of your life. So that encouragement is very important. Now, we looked at the unruly. We look at the timid or the faint-hearted. Let's look at the next person. Said, support the weak. Let's look at the Amplified. Said, help the spiritually weak. Now, you see, the person who is timid is inside. The person who is weak is on the outside. Is weak to act, is weak to take care of his own need. He's doing his best, but he's just weak. He's not strong enough. No matter how much you want to move a tortoise, you cannot make it the speed of a horse. So what do? You help the tortoise, put it in the car and carry it along with you. You support. Some people, they are not afraid to step out in business or in ministry or in marriage, but just need some support. That's where you have to know who to give support to, whether finances or empowerment or whatever. They must be trying, they must be stepping out, but they are weak. He's trying to carry the load, but he's weak. That's when you should help, not the lazy. The lazy are unruly. But somebody who is trying his possible best, is trying to make ends meet. But it's not just making ends meet. The people call them the poor. So you can step into their lives. Not the one just come and line up and become professional beggars. But they are weak. They just can't get it through. And when somebody is weak and doesn't, is always weak, what do? You transfuse his blood. If he's anemic, you just don't say, keep on running. You put something to them, or you give them something to eat, or strengthen them. So I would say this, the weak should be strengthened. And we should help them to march on in God. So we have, let's read through again. We start from verse 14 to verse 15. Let's read it again from New King James Bible. It says, now we exhort you, that's chapter 5, verse 14 and verse 15. Now we exhort you, brethren, warn those who are unruly, comfort the faint-hearted, uphold the weak, be patient with all, so that no one renders evil for evil to anyone, but always pursue what is good, both for yourself and for all. Can I close like this? Two things I'm going to close with, as I with. Be patient with all men. Yes, rebuke. Yes, admonish. Yes, reprimand. Yes, encourage. But be patient. You do it over and over and over and over without tiring. And don't forget this. Ultimately seek their good. As a pastor, that's very important for you. Go after the good. Remember, it's the good news of Jesus. God is good. And like David said, I will have fainted if I had not believed I will see the goodness of God in the land of the living. And in the heart of your people, you must expect the goodness of God. Go after the good, even when they are unruly, when they are weak, when they are faint-hearted. Goodness of God in huge amount is waiting for them. Will they step out? Will they go on? Like Peter was unruly sometimes. Thomas was faint-hearted, doubting. And so many weak people, like in the Garden of Gethsemane, said, the spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak. I them to pray, but they didn't pray. So what do? Support. God is our helper. Thank you for listening to this teaching, and I believe that you've learned one or two things from this. Above all, be patient with all men. See that no one render evil for evil, but seek the good for yourself and for all. Thank you very much.